I'm Harry.
And I'm Richard.
Fuck you, it's Dead Decks.
Yeah, buddy.
Dead Decks.
Yeah, buddy. All right, buddy. Yeah. I don't know what's happening here. I'm really reclined
Yeah,
today.
you are.
Oh.
You get the swing going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's show Gord what we're drinking today.
Oh.
Get that out of the way.
All right, Gord.
Um,
This is for you, my friend.
yeah.
This is the one I don't know how to pronounce, so. Michter's?
We think it's Michter's, yeah.
Kind of like sphincter?
Yeah.
We're drinking
Tastes a little better than a sphincter.
fancy sphincter. Sour mash. It's
Yeah.
not bourbon. It's
No.
whiskey.
Is it blended whiskey?
It doesn't say it's a blend. It says original sour mash whiskey.
I'd say small batch, so it theoretically is
It's blended.
one barrel.
We're
Single barrel.
Whatever. That's what we're drinking.
Who cares? Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah, pretty good. It's sour. It's mashed up.
Sour and smashed.
Yeah.
I just realized why this is different. I don't normally sit in this chair.
Yeah, that's one I usually sit in.
So I'm going to rock back and forth like an old man on the porch.
Anyway, what are we doing today?
We are talking about Heartbreaker hobbies and target games.
Yeah, this is kind of a new series we're experimenting with. We think we're going to continue it. We probably will. But if you've been watching us any length of time, we tend to change our minds a lot and switch focus and sometimes just go way off the rails. But we're gonna talk about some of these different publishers that existed back, especially in the '90s. There were a lot of them back then. They kind of consolidated and they're a little, easier to keep up with nowadays. But back then there were a bunch of them. And a few of them made several games, and this one is the first one we're going to tackle because I don't know why we decided this one first, but
Well, it's one of the ones that intrigues us most, I think.
yeah.
And we've upgraded our special effects. We now have a fog machine.
Yep. And this Heartbreaker / Target, they have 5 unique games that they produced in their very short amount of time that they were in the game. So
Yeah. Yeah, they wasn't messing around. It's cranking them bitches out.
yeah, they were all different games. They weren't similar really in any way. I guess you could kind of say, Doom Trooper and Dark Eden maybe had.
It's certainly a similar aesthetic, because of the shared property. So
Yeah.
we'll walk through a little bit of their history. They were 2 distinct companies that eventually started doing business together. Heartbreaker Hobbies started in 91. I believe it was in Pennsylvania. I believe they primarily did miniatures. And Target Games started around 1980. They were out of Sweden, and they did primarily RPGs. Brian Winters is the guy who was the primary designer for all of the game. Brian Winter, I think it's singular.
I believe
trying
it.
to make him Winters.
Yeah.
He designed almost all of the games that the 2 when a conglomerate later made. He was their primary dude. There was other people involved, but I think he was the lead designer on all of them. I think it's an accurate statement.
And he has a really good interview with Rands over at CCG History. We'll link that below if you want to go listen to it. So you can get it in podcast form or it's on his YouTube. It's about an hour and a half, I think, maybe 2 hours. He may even have 2 videos on there. But either way, it's a good backstory to what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a great one. So at some point, so I know that Target did some miniatures based on Magic. That may have been their first exposure. I think those came out in '94, so they were aware of the Magic and CCG boom, certainly. And at some point, they started working with Heartbreaker Hobbies, whether that was distribution, I don't know. Trying to get in the States, I'm not sure. But those 2 worked together. And one of them went to Brian Winter and said, hey, this shit's big. We're going to make some money. We got some properties here. We have this RPG stuff. Go make us a game.
And they came back to him 3 other times and told him to do the same thing in that same year.
And they kept coming back. Yeah. Hey, you're cranking this shit out. Doing great. Here's some more artwork.
Yep. Make another game.
Another game.
And they were all unique games, too, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, he wasn't reusing his crap. He was generally going back to the well and crafting a new game. So anyway, those 2 worked together. That's how they went down. It was, I think he even says that in the interview. That's exactly the message he heard. There's money to be made. We have art. We don't have to pay for that, so just go. And he went and tried to make something. And I think did a decent job. Yeah. Eventually, those 2 wound up merging. Target bought Heartbreaker Hobbies in '97. And then they run out of money, didn't do as well as they hoped, and filed bankruptcy and closed the doors in '99. So
It was a short-lived marriage, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. So I've heard.
Yeah, yeah. Especially with '90s card game companies. There's very few of those companies still around today, and if they are, they've definitely pivoted in most cases. So.
Yeah. So yeah, Mutant Chronicles was Target since they were the RPG folks, and Cult, one of the other games, was also an RPG they'd done.
Mm-hmm.
So, what else I want to say? Shit. So I guess we'll get into games.
Yeah.
Doom Trooper was the first. So that was, yeah, I just said that. That's one of Target's RPGs. That's the first one they went to Brian and said, hey, make us something. Here's the art. Go for it. So Doom Trooper is you're commanding forces on the field as opposed to being in a one-to-one battle. You're the commander, your creatures, your cards, or your army, and you're going out and fighting. I'm just tear up shit over here.
And one little interesting tidbit that I remember from that interview that he did with CCG History is the art it's in circles on the card, and the way they did that, he just took a toilet paper roll, an empty toilet paper roll, and put it on and made a circle, and the art had to fit in there, so that's how they designed that.
Yeah. Story of my myopic life. Just found what I can squeeze into a toilet paper roll. Focus on that. James Bond 007 is also on the list. I don't know sequentially after Doom Trooper which ones were next, but four of the five came out in 95, so it doesn't matter too much.
No. We're not getting into semantics on that kind of shit. 95. It's all one month.
Yeah, all the glut.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they got that property or whatever, but they wound up making a game on that one. That one was more, not as much combat, was plots from the movies. And you're going to resolve the plot, achieve points that way, and that was the victory condition for that game.
And they used the entire James Bond catalog up to date, I believe, on that as well. So going all the way back to the 60s. And was Sean Connery, was he the first one?
I don't know if he was the first or not.
But and I think they had different levels of, that's how they got around, because James Bond is James Bond, but played by different characters. I think they had different abilities or some kind of different rarity, something along those lines that made it where you could have the same character repeat itself but not be the same card and do different things. And I think it may have been one of the first games to do that, because that would be a common theme later on in other properties that were repackaged into a game. So
yeah, it's a pretty cool way to handle that.
I think Lord of the Rings did that as well with Gandalf and shit like that. So. Anyway, maybe Star Wars did too. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
I don't know.
We got Third Cult.
Yeah.
It's, dark, twisted shit was based on RPG that Target did back in, was it the early 90s, late 80s?
Yeah, 80s. Yeah, I think it was mid 80s.
Yeah, that's pretty sure that's still a fairly big thing on the RPG side. I could be wrong. I'm not often wrong, but I could be. I do know that they had a lot of problems trying to market that game just because of how dark it was, and Brian Winter said that was his favorite game that he created, and he always wanted to create a Fuzzy Bunny version that would be, much softer on the aesthetic side, where everybody could kind of enjoy it, but use the same gameplay mechanics. And he's been rattling stuff in his mind, he said, for decades now, and just never pursued it. But yes, the gameplay on that is more about trying to sway your followers from one side or the other, dark or light kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Your decisions that you make and the cards you play affects how many followers you either attract or detract. So, and then that affects what you can do in the game. And yeah, very cool, interesting concept. The Crow is the one we talked about before at, some amount of length, I guess, for us.
Yeah, we throw some words at it.
Yeah, we said words to it. That one was made to be played out of a booster pack. There were no starters sold. It was designed for retail. So the rules had to fit in the pack, had to be simplified. But again, very distinct and unique mechanics. So those are all in 95. So same dude, lead designer, cranks 4 games out with unique mechanics, while having to dig through, doing a lot of the work himself, all the property, and pull out the art he wanted and what abilities he wanted to try to use, and making it thematic. That's impressive.
Yeah.
And again, quoting Rands, I think Brian said that, he basically just went to sleep, woke up, started working.
Yeah.
See, I would imagine.
Yeah, you have to crank out that many games in 4 years, and I think they were paying them pretty good money to do it. So just all the motivation was there, and I mean, if you were good at that kind of stuff, it'd be exciting to build 4 different games all at pretty much the same time, or if not back to back to each other.
Yeah, that's the crazy sort of obsessive fun I think I could get behind.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds really hard. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I could do, well, I like to try to do that.
I like to think I could do that.
That's exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
So the last one was Dark Eden, kind of trickled out in 97. That was around the time of the merger. I don't know if that was before or after, but obviously not too long before they closed the doors up in 99. So again, distinct mechanics. That may have been a little more closely aligned to Doom Trooper, even mechanically, because it was the same property. But yeah, they were not compatible.
Yeah.
They did have different gameplay.
And I'm pretty sure print run wise, of course, that was after the 95 boom. So I think print run on Dark Eden was much lower. It's much harder to find nowadays than the rest of the stuff on the list. And even the rest of the stuff on the list, none of that stuff's really cheap. So Doom Trooper is probably the cheapest out of all of them.
Yeah.
But I guess cheap is relative. So what Doom Trooper is it? 100 or less? Well, it depends on what you get, what set you get.
Yeah, you can get a couple of expansions for $100 a box.
Yeah, Inquisition, and I remember this
That's the
specifically
one.
in the interview, that they printed the shit out of. It was way overprinted, so that's by far the cheapest, and it's still going to run you 80 to 100 a box. So the rest of the stuff, it's relatively expensive to pick up, hundreds, generally
Yep.
for sealed stuff. Loose, you might be able to get a deal here and there.
Yeah, you can find some bulk around. I got a decent deal on some Doom Trooper bulk, and
Yeah.
there's some of it out there.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think we already covered the fact that all the games originated how you would expect they'd originate. Hey, this is making money, let's do it too.
Yeah.
I think Brian Winters saved him.
Yeah.
That they were trying to be Hyborian Gates, and he made it so that wasn't the case by being a pretty good designer who was diligent and worked his ass off to try to make something out of it. So.
Yeah, and they end up with 5 distinct games that are, I think, mostly well received for all of them, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And it's all ones we plan on getting into it. We say that a lot. Eventually, we'll mean it.
Maybe.
Yeah, they're all 5 of these are on our list. And the Dark Eden is probably the one we'd at least likely to have a chance with because of prices. But
Yeah, if we can find any, we'll get one or two. We have
one pack that you'll see at some point. We're going to do a where's the rare, and at least with that, because that's all we have. So that's all we got to do with it right now.
Yeah, and then rub it on our nipples.
A couple times.
You can always do that. Yeah, I think that sums up basically all of these. We're intrigued by James Bond the least because we're the least into the property.
Yeah. I've never cared about James Bond.
But I didn't know Colt ahead of time, and I'm certainly intrigued by both the mechanics and the aesthetics. The property seems very cool and interesting.
Yeah.
Doom Trooper, same thing. The Mutant Chronicle stuff seems cool.
One thing I will say, since it's kind of related, since it covers all the games, everything I've touched so far on these cards, the card stock quality is pretty garbage for all of them. All of it seems kind of weird and
I don't remember if the Crow was funky. I know Doom Trooper feels a little odd, yeah.
Yeah, and Cult does too, and even the card backs from what I've seen, I haven't seen all of them yet, but when I've seen, they almost look generic in a way, but that, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Very minor.
Yep, I know these are all ones, even before we really knew about the publisher and got all the connections. Everything we saw independently was all intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the ones that looked like they did something decent out of the glut and not just try to print money.
Yeah, and I wasn't Magic Clones or Flights of Fantasy garbage, So.
Yep, company from the 90s we're talking about.
Yep. So yeah, we'll see if this series sticks. But we it's, especially in the history of all this stuff, and we're not trying to necessarily focus on history, but it's important to know who these people are, so, and how it all started.
Yeah, and spotlight publishers that are worth paying attention to.
Yeah.
Out of the 50 games that
right,
all of them weren't. So. All right, well, that's enough words. How do we do then?
Good enough.
Yeah, buddy, we did. Fuck yeah.